Before we dive into the nitty-gritty and the tactical of email, we've got to step back and acknowledge all the different roles and responsibilities that email plays in each and every one of our businesses. So when looking at the multiple jobs of email, the first one, and this is a big one, subscriber engagement. Email is the way that we engage with our different subscriber bases and databases and lists. But email is also responsible for generating direct sales and for generating customer reviews and referrals and for subscriber re-engagement, when that first big role or job kind of falls a little shy. But it's also responsible for bonding and relationship building with us and our subscribers and branding. Don't forget about branding. We have to make sure that the customer or the subscriber recognizes our brand in the inbox. And finally, content distribution. If we're not distributing content, then we can't keep an engaged subscriber base. So with all of the different roles that email plays or jobs that it owns in our business, I think the big question is, how do you know where to focus your email marketing efforts? Well, I've got some good news. At the end of the day, email marketing is just marketing, and hopefully you're already doing that. So let's start with what's already working. And for that, we're going to look to the customer value journey. At Digital Marketer, the customer value journey is the foundational framework at which all marketing is built. This is our guide from taking customers to unaware to raving fan, right? So when we talk about what's working, we look to the value journey and specifically the 8 stages to go from stranger to brand evangelist. So let's break down each of those stages and take a closer look at where and how email interacts with each. Now, the very first stage of the value journey is the awareness stage. This one's pretty simple. The question is, how do customers or prospects find out that you exist? How do they become aware that you or your brand exists? So this could be by seeing an ad or finding you in search or hearing about you through a referral partner. Now, once a customer has become aware or a potential customer or prospect has become aware that you and your brand exist, they move to the next phase of the customer value journey, and that's the engage phase. And this phase, this is where the customer is going to start to engage with your brand and specifically high-value content. Now, this could be a blog post or a social media post. Maybe it's a podcast episode or a video. Could be a YouTube video. This is where the prospect starts to get excited about not only you and your brand, but the content. They start to believe that they've found someone that can add value and enrich their day-to-day lives. So the next step, and this one's big, especially for email, after engagement is the subscribe phase. Once someone has started to engage with your content and receive that value, the prospect opts in to receive a relevant piece of gated content. This is when the email portion starts. Up until now, while email could drive awareness through referrals, it's very difficult to drive awareness with email outside of referrals and forward. After subscribe phase, we enter into the convert phase. Now, this is when the prospect makes a small purchase, and this is important. When we say purchase or when we say conversion, we're talking about 2 different types of currency. It could be a transaction with real money. We could be talking about dollars, money, or we could be talking about time, right? Those are the 2 different types of currency that can be traded for high-value content and considered a conversion. So moving from subscribe to convert, moving from convert to excite. Once that initial conversion has happened, the customer needs to get actual value from the initial transaction. Again, whether that transaction occurred with monetary value or with time, we need to make sure that the customer can get excited and feel like the transaction was a success. Once that happens, we can move into the value ladder. We can move into the ascension ladder to where we can continue to offer relevant products or services to what we know the customer is interested in, and they can continue to ascend up that ladder. Once we're through ascension, either because the customer stopped ascending or because we didn't have any other relevant product or service offerings to sell them, we now focus into the advocate stage. Now, this is when customers give reviews or feedback or testimonials, maybe even a case study, right? This is the next phase of the customer value journey and the start of the transition from multi-buyer to brand evangelist. So the advocate is more of a passive promoter, right? So the ultimate goal is promoter, which is intentional. The advocate is someone who will say nice things about your brand if asked or if prompted. We want to move to the next phase, and that is to have the customer successfully tell their friends and colleagues about their brand. They need to have so much success, you need to have so much of an impact on their lives that they can't wait to tell others about you so that they can experience the same value, the same benefit, the same impact in their lives. Now, life would be easy and marketing would be simple if customers moved through this, if no one ever fell out and it was a straight line. But it's not. Things happen. People stop along the way. People get stuck. Life happens. We have to figure out how to leverage marketing to move people through the value journey and to re-engage them when they get stuck. So let's revisit the role of email marketing. Email marketing has two jobs. One, to nudge or lead a customer to the next stage in the value journey, and two, to facilitate bonding. If we want to keep the prospect moving through the value journey, we need to not only encourage the next logical step, but we also need to increase the relationship at each point and at each engagement. So, looking back at the customer value journey canvas and focusing in on areas that customers fall out, and we need to leverage email for the assist. We need email to pick customers back up and move them back into the process when they get stuck and fall out, moving from the convert stage to the excite phase. So if a prospect finds out that you're aware and engages with high value content and is so excited that they opt in, right? They opt into a specific lead magnet or gated piece of content, and that moves them seamlessly into the offer for a premium product or purchase, or to trade time for a conversion, and they get stuck. They fall out. They don't instantly make the purchase. They slide back down on this dotted arrow, and it's our job to leverage every possible method and mode to get them re-engaged and back to the convert phase as quickly as possible. Email is the easiest way to, one, know when that happens, and two, to trigger a campaign to get them back on track. In the same way that we're looking at the dotted arrow from convert back to engage, the next stage, excite, also has a dotted arrow driving back to the engage phase. So if the customer does make that initial purchase, if they decide that they're going to invest either time or money in whatever our product or service offering is, and then they get to the next phase and they don't become excited. Either they don't experience actual value or they don't realize they've experienced actual value. They fall out of the journey and end up back in the engage phase. Again, this is where email steps in and re-engages them, hopefully right back where they started in that engage phase or excite phase, allows them to experience the value or realize that they've already experienced the value and move them in to the next phase of the journey, the ascend phase. If the prospect moves up the ascension ladder and gets stuck, right? They get stuck because they're done ascending, or they get stuck just because something happens, they slide back over into the excite phase. And again, this is where email can be leveraged to push the subscriber back into the area where they were stuck. And finally, in the advocate phase, if we know that the customer has not only converted and made an initial transaction, they've become excited, they've made multiple purchases and ascended up our ascension ladder, now we need to start to move them from multi-buyer to promoter, or to advocate to promoter. We need to ask for feedback. We need to ask for reviews. We need to ask for testimonials. If they fall out, we need to re-excite them and get them back on track. Again, this is where email is the most powerful on the journey. It's to nudge people through the journey to restart a new journey or re-engage the existing once they get stuck or fall out. Now that you understand how email interacts and engages with the customer value journey, let's take a deep dive into the tools you'll use to move your prospects through the different stages of the journey.